Howdy there folks, it's Geist, and today we're doing a review of the new exotic bow Hierarchy of Needs, which just dropped this season. The intrinsic perk on this bow is called Guidance Ring, where precision hits and final blows build Guidance Ring energy. Opposing guardians grant additional energy. At full charge, hip firing creates a Guidance Ring. Apollonic Tangent, if I'm saying that right, is its other intrinsic perk, which causes arrows fired through the ring to release Seeking Projectile. And finally, the Catalyst dramatically increases the draw speed and reload speed after deploying a Guidance Ring or firing the Seeking Projectiles at something and hitting them. Now in PvP, Hierarchy of Needs deals 153 damage on a perfectly drawn headshot and 150 damage on an overdrawn headshot. It also deals 96 damage to the body on a perfectly drawn shot and 94 to the body on an overdrawn shot, which unfortunately means this is the first precision bow that can't reliably 2-tap to the body. One other important thing to note is that when tap firing, the bow deals 81 to the body and 129 to the head. So what this means is, in a pinch, you could, in theory, go for a normal headshot and then quickly tap fire to the body to finish somebody off in close to medium range. In PvP, both headshots and kills add 2 out of 6 to the Guidance Ring meter. So in theory, if you're able to pull this off, 2 consecutive headshots resulting in a kill on a Guardian will fully fill the Guidance Ring meter. While the Guidance Ring is active, firing arrows through the ring will result in an additional 34 damage from the Seekers. This means that as long as at least one of your arrows passes through the ring, you can 2-tap a Guardian at any resilience, even if both shots are body shots. One important thing to note about Hierarchy and its interaction with damage buffs such as Radiant is that damage buffs will allow this bow to one-shot when using the ring. Now, it's sort of a weird interaction. Radiant buffs the damage of the arrow itself, but it does not buff the damage of the Seekers. So, in order to get a one-shot with this bow through the ring, you have to be at 36 meters or further, because the Seekers themselves ramp up their damage based on distance and distance alone. In my personal opinion, the best way to utilize this bow in PvP is not really to go for the one-shots, as they require a lot of moving parts and setup to actually profit from. Instead, what you should do is farm headshots and kills so that you can power up the ring and then use the ring's draw speed buff to get a rapid 2-tapping kill. Just make sure that either one of your shots is a headshot or the second one passes through the ring to get enough damage to kill them. In PvE, this bow has an entirely different feel and is a completely different beast altogether. I would say it's a lot stronger in PvE for sure. A couple good things that this bow has going for it. Number one, it has probably some of the best boss DPS that a primary can do. It's not the best, but it's definitely up there, so it makes a great backup if you're running out of heavy on a boss DPS phase and you need to use something. This will serve you well. It also kind of turns you into like a little turret. You can sit here and just spam out. It's got tons of ad clear, and you can wipe out whole groups of ads, as you'll see me do here in some of the footage. One kind of tip I do want to talk about though, you want to make sure that you don't sit there and just spam from the hip unless you're doing boss DPS. If you're in a well or something like that and you're standing there DPSing a boss, you can sit there and hip fire it repeatedly into the boss's crit spot and the rings will just keep proccing. Sometimes it appears as though you get double damage if you have multiple rings going or if the ring is inside the boss's hitbox. Tests that I've done with that haven't really shown either way, and it doesn't look like visually there are more projectiles coming out. But it is kind of food for thought that when you're shooting the boss, and it could just be a bug, I don't know if it's intended or not. But when you're shooting a boss with this thing, sure, go ahead and hip fire. But for general use and just killing mobs and wiping out groups in general, you want to be a little bit more precise with it. Don't just sit there and spam from the hip. Only shoot from the hip whenever you deploy the ring itself, and then otherwise just kind of ADS. That way you don't accidentally deploy the ring when you don't mean to. Because if you're ADSing, you let off with the ADS right as you release the arrow, sometimes the ring will just pop out even though you didn't mean it to. One final note is that whenever you're charging up the ring, it's halved compared to how it was in Crucible. So headshots and kills each give 1 out of 6 for this. My final thoughts on this bow are that it's definitely a niche bow, and it's certainly a lot of fun. Aesthetically, it's one of the coolest looking bows in the game, if not the coolest looking bow in the game. It's really cool looking, the rings are really neat, everything about it is just really cool looking, and it's a lot of fun to use. It may not be the most practical or the most powerful thing to use, however, especially not in PvP, as you've seen. Now, you can definitely make it work in PvP, but you're going to struggle. Pretty much every other bow in the game is going to serve you better in a PvP scenario. You could even go and grab that blue bow out of collections and probably do better with that, just because it's got a faster draw time and archer's tempo. But all that aside, it's definitely more of a PvE bow, so I would use it a lot more in there, and it's certainly a lot of fun to use in PvE, and you can make some fun builds. Warlocks especially can do a lot with this bow, with all your different wells and things like that. You can really kind of turn into, like I said, a little turret with it, and just kind of post up and just start wiping out a bunch of ads. All in all, those are my thoughts on this bow. For me, this one's going to be a pass, but don't let my opinion discourage you. It's certainly still a fun and cool bow, so if you have fun with it, just keep using it. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.